Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast, the opposition show with me, Jonny, and today I'm with a very good friend, Ben, from the YYY-Files to chat about Stoke. Ben, thank you very much for joining me. How's it going? You okay?
Thank you. Yeah, all right, I suppose. If you'd have asked me a week ago, I'd have been in despair. But it's amazing what two home wins on a bounce does, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got we're looking for 8 in a row. So,
That's true.
it's crazy what a few wins can do, isn't it? But let's chat about what's been going on with Stoke this season because it's our 105th game between us. It's spanning back since 1902, since our first game. We Boro won 2-0, and I think we all know how that game was back in the day. But given obviously Mike Carrick, we always welcome you guys to the Riverside. We're looking for our 8th win on the spin. You guys are looking for your 3rd win in a row. Obviously, we both beat Sunderland, which is very, very nice. And you beat Leeds last night as well. But I just want to look at the summer, Ben, first and see how things are because you did bring quite a few bodies in. You invested in the squad again. So how would you reflect on the summer transfer window for Stoke?
Absolute chaos. Like
Yeah.
genuinely, it was insane. Uh, j- it wasn't just a player turnover. So I'm sure we ended the season with about 6 players, and a couple of those left. We brought 18 in. One of them's already gone back to his parent club and out on loan again. Um, we didn't change the manager, but we did change the head of recruitment. We changed all our coaching staff. We changed the marketing director. We changed the media department completely. There's not much at Stoke that really hasn't changed, um, but it's been so overdue, really overdue. We've needed modernising for years. We've been going with this manager-led. I don't want to say community club because that's a positive, but I mean
Mhm.
a very local club, as in like there's
Yeah.
people that were working at Stoke for a long, long time behind the scenes. Um, and I've seen people in my employment where if you're at a company for 20, 30 years, you do get complacent.
Mm.
Um, and that's what happened. I think Tony Scholes was at Stoke for nearly 20 years and he left to go and work at the Premier League. Um, and rather than bring in a CEO to replace him, we brought in a whole manner of people in specific roles, much more like a modern club should do. The owner's
Yeah.
taken, albeit he's still very interested and obviously willing to foot the bill for anything, he's taken a bit of a backseat and let experts who aren't necessarily from Stoke, but experts in their field, do all the work. And the growth, particularly off the pitch, has been really exciting. The media team has
Yeah.
been great. We've just announced a new fan zone. Anyone who watched Sky Sports last night might have seen the light show that was going on with the new LEDs that was in the stadium. It's just been a transformation on and off the pitch. It's just a shame that an on the pitch transition doesn't quite go as seamlessly as an off the pitch transition because we're signing
Mm.
that many players, having new coaching staff. It's just we've looked disjointed, but that was to be
Mm.
expected, surely. I mean,
Yeah.
anyone who watched Nottingham Forest last season, right? They signed over 20 players and some of them didn't even make the matchday squad or, even the squad in general, did they? And we've gone down a very similar route. I'm just hoping we come good just like they seem to have done.
Yeah. On that squad, obviously, you brought in quite a lot of players, and on paper, it looks really solid. Like a lot of Stoke teams have probably over the last couple of years. But do you think this year is just a case of when it clicks, it'll really start to be exciting, or is it just a case of this is going to probably need another like 12 to 18 months?
Um, it's really difficult, isn't it? It depends on genuinely how good the recruitment team can find these hidden gems because that's what they
Mm.
are. We've been signing players from the Hungarian league and the Portuguese league and the Korean league. Wesley from Villa, hasn't played a game for a good year or so. Um, uh, we've taken a lot of chances, um, and a lot of it when our recruitment team sees these players, they see potential. Even if they're not great today, they will be tomorrow. It's just how long is tomorrow? Um, So I can't answer that. Um, what I would say is that I watched a video over the summer from Tifo Football, I think, and they were breaking down why transfers don't work out. And they say that in like 10% of cases, the manager just doesn't get on with them, or 10% of times they don't settle, or in 10% of cases they just get injured. Um, and it adds up to be around half of transfers in football simply just don't work out. Now we've
Yeah.
signed 18 players. That would suggest that 9 are duds. So when they have formed, you know, those 9 players are a good, 30% of our squad because, we had to sign so many players because we had so few in the first
Yeah.
place. We're gonna have to let them go and try again next season, and it's gonna be. I think it may take a couple of years just to come good, and it might be 10 signings next summer and 6 the next, and maybe 3 big signings the next. But we might get lucky, and Jared Dublin, head of recruitment, he was at Sheffield United, and of course he brought through some really good players. To be fair, scouted some really good gems. So this could be quite painful, but I'm already seeing improvement, as in I'm seeing the patterns of play, I'm seeing the partnerships, I'm seeing the confidence, I'm seeing the Ryan Mai, for example. So he's the one that joined from the Hungarian league. He looked quite physically meek, but then he didn't have to be. He's that sort of player that drops off and almost acts as like a
Yeah.
false nine. He didn't need to be strong, but when you're coming up against these big championship centre backs, you need a bit of muscle behind you. Well, he's been injured, and during that time, he's certainly beefed up, and hopefully that pays off for him. And the same sort of treatment will be the same for everybody else. I tell you what has happened. Everybody's been injured because everyone's trying to acclimatise to this country's brutal football. Andre Vidigal scored 4 goals in his first 5 games, I think, and then went down injured. Ryan Mai went down injured. Um, it just shows how brutal a league it is, and you simply can't just buy your way in. You've got to be really smart with your recruitment. And that just plays testament to those who are up where they are at the moment, because we could have quite easily done a Leicester 5 years ago, and we didn't because we got our recruitment wrong.
Yeah. On that recruitment, though, obviously this is a big topic with all the players that have came in. Is there anyone that has actually stood out to you? I know that you said 50% of transfers just don't work out, but is there any that actually have? Because obviously Vidigal has came in, he scored 4 goals, he started off really bright. I like Wouter Berger as well, like the centre defensive mid from Basel. Backstory is I say him on FIFA for my Aberdeen save career mode, which some of our people in our Telegram chat will know all about. And obviously, I went down the rabbit hole of the Swiss league, started to find some gems, and you know how it builds. And obviously I've been watching him from a fan. I didn't really actually realize he signed for Stoke this season, but is there anyone that actually is standing out for you right now and could potentially play an impact in our game, probably at the weekend?
If we're talking about short-term impact, I mean, probably the most impressive of the signings that are a bit more exotic, probably Berger is that one. He's displaced Josh Laurent in midfield, who is the captain,
Wow.
and he's been playing really well, particularly against the Leeds. Defensively, he was immaculate. Is capable of the spectacular, but perhaps tries it a little bit too much at the moment. He could definitely benefit from keeping his game just a little bit simpler. Less passes with the outside of your foot and more actually completing them 5 yards. But he looks like a cracking player, and physically he's one that was certainly ready for this league, no doubt about that. Of the older heads, it's nice to have Mark Travers in goal and not someone who doesn't have any limbs, as we have done for the last 3 years. It's been when we signed Travers, Alex Neil said signing him will give us 10 or 12 extra points this season, and you can clearly see the difference. Stoke have had over, and I'm talking years now, I've always had great goalkeepers. You go back from Gordon Banks and Peter Shilton all the way to, Asmir Begovic, Jack Butland. They've been top tier. To have had people like Jack Bonham in goal,
Mm.
Has just been really disappointing to watch, and seeing the really cheap goals we've conceded. So it's nice to have Travers back. Um, Someone that might surprise us, I'm not sure. Mehdi Leris has been really interesting as a signing. Um, he is basically what Jacob Brown was, as in he's been playing on the wing, he's been working very hard, really good defensively. Uh, does try the odd trick on the wing and can get past people. But the amount of headers he won against Sam Byram last night was incredible, and we're leaning into that so much. I'm not sure who's playing at left back for you guys at the moment, but I hope he's over 6 foot, because if not, I know exactly where that ball's going on Saturday afternoon. It's going to be over towards that right hand side of ours. Um,
Yeah, go on, go on.
no, I was just going to say there's some players that are exciting, haven't broken through yet, like Nikola Jojic. I think he came from Serbia or Slovenia. I
Mm.
can't remember which one. He's not had much of an impact yet. Um, but someone who might surprise us, particularly with rotation through, just fitness, is Bae-Jun Ho, 19-year-old from South
Mm.
Korea. He's been really sharp. Not quite ready yet to start games, I don't think. But if we're 1-0 down, perhaps on Saturday, I can imagine him coming on and having a huge difference. He's just so direct and really intelligent. Um, like I say, maybe not quite ready physically, but he doesn't half get stuck in when he wants to. Um, we've got options for the first time in a long time. That's what's been good about this transfer window. We've mixed up the type of players we've signed. You look at Wesley and Ryan May, completely different players, and we did not have that last season at all.
Mm. Yeah, that development and that journey that I think you guys are on, like right now, I could see very similar parallels. And I know you spoke to Dan last year around like how Middlesbrough and Stoke are quite similar. We started that journey of completely new recruitment under when Neil Warnock was just in charge, and we got rid of him, and we brought in Chris Wilder in the November a couple of seasons ago now. And we've overhauled our recruitment. We've got a whole new recruitment team. We just brought in a new performance analyst from Stockport. Who's going to be like our head of performance. We've got Kieran Scott there heading everything up, and we've kind of went away from a manager leading recruitment to the club leading recruitment, and we play in a certain way. And if you don't do it that way, then it's probably not going to work out. And we've really started to benefit from that. I think that obviously you're not always going to get all the signs right, like we've both mentioned, but when they do work out, and when you start to really believe in that process, and it starts to really start to come together, you really do start to find these gems. And I think our summer, it's been a case of we lost 66 goals pretty much in the flick of a switch, like just gone from Giles, Akpom, Archer, and Ramsey, and then you're thinking, how are we gonna get all these goals together? And then you just slowly start to see things like piece together. And from what you were saying there, it feels like you are very much at that start of that journey. You've got a chairman as well who is definitely wanting to invest quite a lot, and they have done over like the last few seasons as well. But I'm excited to see what the journey will be like for you guys, maybe that next 18 months. But with football, it can change so quickly. Like we changed it with Wilder. We were on this really good run, then died off. Wilder wanted to go elsewhere. Then we brought in Carrick, and we've just seemed to go one direction, obviously, apart from maybe the first 7 or 8 games of the season. But to now, like it seems like when it starts to click and the patterns start to appear, and you really do start to hone in on the strengths of the squad and what you've got available. And we've done something different this summer as well, around bringing in players that can play multiple positions at once, and that's really started to benefit us when we have a lot of injuries right now for coming into Saturday, and a suspension here in Hackney. You're thinking, well, actually, we're probably okay. But in terms of our left back, Lucas Engel, who had an absolute stinker against Sheffield Wednesday, and then has just came on so good ever since. I'm going to have to get a tape measure out, because I'm not too sure how tall he is, but Alex Bangura, I think, should be similar height as well. So we'll see on that one. But for your season so far, you know, 5 wins, 1 draw, 7 defeats. You're 16th. You've came on back-to-back wins off Sunderland and Leeds. How are you feeling now that you've had a couple of wins? Obviously, the 2 defeats in the last previous games, I think one were Leicester and one was Southampton. So it's really like not too bad on paper. But how would you kind of like assess things right now coming into Boro's coming into the game on Saturday? How are you feeling? Obviously, there's a lot of change on and off the pitch, but you were mentioning earlier on like the patterns of play and how things are slowly starting to come together. That ball over to that right hand side. So how are you feeling about everything right now?
Um, I think I said to you when I first joined the call that if you'd have asked me 2 weeks ago, I'd have been really despondent and quite
Mm,
concerned. Um, but having reflected on again, it's amazing what a couple of wins does. I don't be wrong, I'm still cautiously optimistic. I know that Stoke, like you rightly said, are on a bit of a journey here. But I look back at you mentioned Southampton and Leicester, and the
mm,
Southampton game. We played well, and bar some really poor refereeing, we would have genuinely won that game.
mm.
We we've been apologised by PGMOL, I think 6 times this season for penalties that should have gone our way. And I'm not saying we'd have won any of those games, but Southampton particularly was dreadful.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think he's refereed a game since. I think he's been dropped. Leicester, everyone's going to lose to Leicester, I think, this season. Um,
Yeah.
but we defended pretty well until we decided just to give it a go, and then Leicester battered us. The minute you come onto Leicester, they just go into third gear and take you out. And then we played reasonably well again against Sunderland and Leeds as well. And although it's not been spellbinding football, um, I said I'm finally starting to see patterns of play, but they're finally getting it. The players are getting
Mm,
what it takes, and you can't be scared or lazy or uh, not concentrating. You've got to be switched on for 90 minutes, and I think the players are getting that message now. Um, I think a lot of players have been just surprised by the intensity of this league, and it won't help that a lot of them have been injured. Um, but we're getting there, and I'm not saying we're going to win every game by any stretch, but I think we, as proven last night, as long as we stick to the game plan, don't make any silly mistakes, because that's been more often than not silly mistakes resulting in goals for us. As long as we keep those to a minimum, we could give anybody a game. It's going to be difficult against you guys, considering the run that you've been on. Um, but we're in decent form, so why not? Yeah, against Leicester, I wasn't quite sure why people were going, but to this one against Boro, good luck to them. I think the fans up there will have a
yeah.
decent afternoon anyway, or at least we'll be encouraged by what we see.
Yeah, and I think on this game as well, for me, I think it's a really difficult game for us. From everything that you've been mentioning earlier, and I watched a bit of the game last night. It just seems that this probably could be quite a bad time to play Stoke because of when things slowly start to click, the confidence starts to build. You're mentioning there around like people are starting to slowly get it and really start to work for Alex Neil. And I hate when Boro play Alex Neil teams because he always seems to have our number and it really annoys me. Um, I remember like Preston before where they beat us 2-1. I remember obviously the Norwich game where they beat us at Wembley. And obviously he's a very shrewd manager, and I would have had him at Middlesbrough. I think if when we're getting rid of Wilder, there's a few names. Like obviously when the rumors started around Wilder saying that he was going to go to Burnley or to Bournemouth, I was like, well, Alex Neil could be a shout. And then obviously it went a little bit longer, and then Rob Edwards and Matt Carrick became very apparent and very clear, and that was like, yes, I'm 100% behind those two names, and we end up getting with Carrick. But Alex Neil for me, I don't know. He just has something over. It's very much Tony Mowbray syndrome with us, where Mowbray always tends to beat us. We beat him 4-0 a couple of weeks ago, so I'm happy with that. But if we're looking at the predictions for the game, obviously you've had a few injuries. Obviously Ben Wilmot as well injured again, which is very frustrating for you guys. Well, what a talent! Like, and he just keeps getting injured, which is frustrating. But how do you see the game going on Saturday? Do you feel like there's a really good opportunity for Stoke to maybe win the game?
Um, I think this is Stoke's sort of game, and
Yeah.
I say that because you guys aren't going to sit back, and if you do, you'll have more chance of winning the game. I think, ironically. Stoke just don't know how to break down a solid team. The one of the few losses we've had at home this season was against Preston, and of course,
Yeah.
they were anyway terrific defensively this season, and we just could not break them down. They nicked a goal or two, and that's all she wrote. But I think we'll be the ones on Saturday to take a back seat, not necessarily be overwhelmed, but our press is coming on well now, and the counter press as well, particularly against Leeds, was really good. Wouter Berger leading that counter press was excellent, winning the ball back so many times. So I think this is our sort of game, which is a very dangerous thing to say because, like I say, the run that you guys have been on and the quality that you've shown, and if anything has broken Stoke down recently, other than their own silly mistakes, it has been quality. Like I say, as soon as Leicester decided to go into third gear, they showed it. Ipswich, when we played them, they turned on the style for a few minutes and they scored a couple of goals, and again, that's all she wrote. So, I feel like if you guys get a foothold in the game at 0-0 particularly, it'll be more likely you guys to take the lead. I wonder how it would have gone last night if Bamford did score that penalty rather than stick it over the bar and we go down the other end and nick it.
Yeah.
But 1-0 down, I think we could probably hold a lead. So I think if we're going to get you guys, we've got to get you early, and try and sit on that lead a little bit. But then, like I say, we've not been the most productive up front. There is partnerships brewing. Vidigal nearly scored from a couple of crosses yesterday. Wouter Berger and Ryan Meyer yesterday. There was an interchange of about 1, 2, 3, 4 very quick passes together and nearly put the ball under Melier, and that seems to be a really good partnership. Daniel Johnson's realizing that he can play wherever he likes in that midfield, and he'll be somewhat effective. He'll be a 7 out of 10. Like I say, we've got options to change the game. Wesley to come on and try and be a bit more of a physical presence, and Bejon Ho to be a bit more scary, I guess. But I'm just glad that Ben Pearson didn't get a yellow card, because I think that would have been his 10th of the season, and which is I'm pretty sure the championship record is Ben Pearson's 13 yellows in a season. How many games are we on now? 12, 13 games, and he's already on 8 or 9. That's absolutely insane.
I mean, it's very Ben Pearson for him to do that, though. Like, I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever seen a game where he hasn't got booked. Just you know what I mean? He's just like one of those really not like scruffy midfielders, but like he knows how to break a game down. And
Yes.
I thought he was very, very good at Preston, and obviously very, very good for you guys as well. And just that midfield, I think Pearson and Wouterberger as well. Like, that's a tidy midfield. I feel like maybe it might just lack that someone who can really bring the ball forward as much. But if you want to turn over games and really get teams on the counter, you've got two very, very good defensive midfielders to do that, right? So I'm very intrigued by this game now and see how he could potentially build. But have you got a score prediction at all for it?
Oh, blimey.
Come on, Ben, you've got this. You go and you
Yeah,
hate it when I ask you for this, don't you? You hate it, but
because
uh,
it seems that sort of game, like, what,
yeah.
two teams one in very good form, one who's going to be going in with a bit of confidence. So 0-0.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I am. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I could
love
just
that
see it
from
being
you.
one of those games, like just two teams who are playing well but just can't quite figure each other out. And
Yeah.
uh, knowing me now, it'll be 5+ goals. But look, I'm going 0-0 just because I'm getting confidence in our defense. Michael Rose and Luke Manali are finally getting a bit of partnership, which is nice.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I particularly away from home, our attack hasn't been that potent, so I do worry there. So based off that, 0-0, and we'll be chuffed with that. We'll be,
Yeah.
with the guys with the run that you guys are on, we'll be chuffed with that. I'm sure. To get 7 points from Leeds, Sunderland, and Boro would be excellent for us. Excellent. So yeah,
Mm.
I'll go with that.
Yeah. Okay. I think I can't. If that form would remind me of that February that you guys had, where you just went on this incredible run and you looked amazing, and then it just went, ugh, like I'm gone. Like just like I don't know what happened in the end, but it was, I think maybe that could be the start of that run again. And once you get a bit of confidence in these new players, like it could just be a really exciting few months for you as well. But I'm gonna go with I think I'm gonna go 2-1 Boro. I can see you scoring, but I just think I'm hoping that we continue the winning run, and we just edge it, and that would be really good for us. Then we go to Plymouth, and we got Exeter in the cup, and then Plymouth. So a long couple of journeys, but fingers crossed we actually do it. But Ben, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. I know you're really hectic at the minute, so I'm so delighted that you've came on and spoke to me tonight. But for everyone who's listening to us and watching us on YouTube and the podcast providers, don't forget to give us a 5-star rating, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, all that, do that fun stuff. But Ben, can anyone find you anywhere? The content, I know it's been a little bit quiet because of how busy you are at the moment, but YYY-Files on Twitter, anywhere else?
Yeah, I'm lucky that the content's a bit timeless, really. So it's a
Yeah.
little bit different to stuff like this. I interview Stoke fans basically about how they started getting involved with the club and their journey through their favorite games, their favorite players, what they think of the club now. And luckily that stuff is pretty timeless. So if you did want to get your fill on Stoke, by all means go and get involved with that. But if you fancy learning just a little bit more about Stoke, HITC released a really good video on Stoke recently, breaking down the last 10, 15 years or so, about half an hour long. Go and find it on YouTube. It's really, really good. And I posted on Twitter, it made my blood boil. And all they had to do was state facts and analyze them really well. And I got really angry. So go and watch that video. It's really good.
I've wasted 10, 15 years of my life for this. And I just think, I'm like, oh, why? What have I done? Oh, man. Well, thank you so much. And to listen, viewers, thank you so much for listeners. But this has been the Boro Breakdown podcast. And that was all your Boro and Stoke chatter in a pod. Up the Boro Breakdown.